Let's be real for a second. Not every firearm is a blue-chip investment. If you have been watching the classifieds or walking the aisles at your local gun shows lately, you have seen the shift. We spent the last few years in a seller's market where you could practically name your price on anything that went bang. But as we rolled through late 2024 and settled into 2025, the floor completely fell out from under some very specific platforms. We are seeing a massive market correction. It is not just obscure oddballs either. We are talking about heavy hitters, guns that were commanding hundreds over MSRP just 18 months ago. Between supply chain saturation, new product launches making older jeans obsolete, and the tightening of wallets, the resale value on these things has absolutely tanked. If you are holding one of these 12 guns, do not shoot the messenger. I am just reading the data from the shelves. Number 12. Marlin, 1895. We are starting off with a platform that breaks my heart a little bit because I genuinely love this rifle. It is the Marlin 1895, specifically the 4570 government models. Go back to 2022 or 2023, and the Space Cowboy tactical lever action trend was at its absolute peak. Everyone wanted an 1895 guide gun with a threaded barrel, an M-lock handguard, and a red dot on top. You literally could not find these things on the shelf. But as we hit 2025, two major factors caused the value of these guns to crash hard. First, you have the Ruger effect. When Ruger bought Marlin and finally spun up their production lines, they started pumping out rifles that were frankly much better quality than the old Remlin or Remington-made Marlins. Once the market got flooded with the new high-quality Ruger-made 1895s, the value of all those older used models took a nosedive. Nobody wants to pay premium prices for a used rifle with potential quality control issues when the new ones are readily available and built like tanks. Second is the ammo reality check. 4570 is a devastating round, perfect for dropping a bear or a moose, but it is brutal on the wallet. We are talking $3 to $4 every time you pull the trigger. A lot of guys bought these for the cool factor, shot one box of ammo, bruised their shoulder, and realized they could not afford to run it. Now, the used racks are stacked deep with 1895s that have barely been fired, and sellers are taking a loss just to move them. Number 11. Heritage Rough Rider. Coming in at number 11, we have the Heritage Rough Rider. Now, look, I am not here to bash this little 22 LR revolver. For what it is, a single-action plinker that costs less than a decent steak dinner, it serves a purpose. It is the gateway drug for anyone who grew up watching John Wayne movies and wants to feel that cowboy nostalgia without dropping $2,000 on a Colt single-action army. But here is why the value on these things has absolutely cratered in 2025. It comes down to pure market saturation and the novelty curve. During the big buying surges of 2020 and even into 2024, people were buying these things by the crate. You had guys picking up the standard models, the bird's head grips, and especially those ridiculous 16-inch bunt-line models just for the meme factor. It was an impulse buy, plain and simple. The problem is, the novelty of a single-action rimfire wears off pretty quick. You have to load one cartridge at a time through the loading gate, shoot 6, and then punch out the empty brass one by one with the ejector rod. It is slow, tedious work. Once that initial fun factor fades, thousands of these end up sitting in the back of the safe. When those owners decided to sell them off this past year, they ran into a hard wall of economics. A brand new Rough Rider often goes on sale for $100 or $120. If you try to sell a used one, by the time the buyer pays the transfer fee and background check, it is literally cheaper for them to just go buy a new one. That means the used value of a Rough Rider is effectively zero. You are basically trading it for a handshake. Number 10. Ruger AR-556. At number 10, we have the Ruger AR-556. For a long time, this was the gold standard for my first rifle. If you walked into a gun shop anywhere in America between 2016 and 2022 and asked for a solid, budget-friendly AR-15, the guy behind the counter handed you one of these. It is a workhorse. It has the cold, hammer-forged barrel, the rapid deploy rear sight, and Ruger's legendary customer service backing it up. But in 2025, the resale value on these standard configuration carbines has hit a wall. The AR market is incredibly sensitive to the political climate. We saw massive panic buying leading up to the 2024 election cycle, where people were grabbing any semi-automatic rifle they could find. Now that the dust has settled and the political temperature has cooled off a bit regarding bans, the demand has evaporated. The other major factor killing the AR-556 resale value is the evolution of what we call entry-level. This rifle comes with a fixed front sight base, a delta ring, and a standard plastic handguard. In 2025, even budget buyers expect a free-float M-lock rail system, a mid-length gas system for softer recoil, and better furniture right out of the box. You have competitors like Palmetto State Armory, and others offering those modern features for the same price or less than a new Ruger. So, when you try to trade in your basic AR-556, dealers know it is going to sit on the shelf because it looks dated next to the modern rail-equipped rifles. Number 9. Smith & Wesson M&P Shield. Coming in at number 9 is the original Smith & Wesson M&P Shield. Now, before the comment section explodes, let me be clear. This is a legendary firearm. When the Shield dropped back in 2012, it completely changed the game for concealed carry. It was slim, reliable, and actually shootable compared to the tiny pocket pistols we had back then. It ruled the roost for nearly a decade. But here is the hard truth about 2025. The single-stack 9mm is dead. The market has aggressively shifted to the micro-compact, or stack-and-a-half designs. Once the SIG P365 and the Hellcat hit the scene, offering 10 or 12 rounds in the same footprint where the Shield only gave you 7 or 8, the writing was on the wall. Then Smith & Wesson released the Shield Plus, which fixed the capacity issue and that gritty, hinged trigger that everyone hated on the Gen 1. The result? A massive migration. Everyone who carried a Gen 1 Shield for 5 years traded it in to buy a Shield Plus or a Macro. The used market is absolutely drowning in these original single-stack models. You can walk into pawn shops right now and find stacks of them for $200 or less. It is a buyer's market. But if you are trying to sell one, do not expect to get anywhere near what you paid for it. Number 8. Panzer Arms AR-12. At number 8, we have the Panzer Arms AR-12, and frankly, this represents the entire category of cheap, Turkish-made tactical shotguns. During the ammo shortages and the tactical boom, these things sold like hotcakes because they looked cool. They have the aggressive AR-15 styling, detachable box magazines, and rail space for days, all for like $300. It looked like a steal. But the crash in value here is all about performance reality setting in. After a year or two of ownership, shooters realized that most of these budget AR-12s are extremely picky about ammo. They jam on low brass birdshot, the magazines are bulky and awkward to load, and the internal metallurgy often just does not hold up to high round counts. We are talking about soft locking blocks and gas pistons that gum up way too fast. In 2025, the cool factor of a mag-fed shotgun that doesn't cycle reliably has completely evaporated. People got tired of clearing malfunctions at the range. Now, owners are trying to offload them to upgrade to a Beretta 1301 or even just a reliable pump action like a Mossberg 590. The market is saturated with these tactical shotguns, and dealers are extremely hesitant to take them in on trade because they know they are going to sit on the shelf forever. Number 7. Mossberg Patriot. Coming in at number 7, we have the Mossberg Patriot. Now, I have said this 1,000 times. Mossberg makes the undisputed king of pump-action shotguns with the 590 series. But when it comes to their bolt-action rifles, The market in 2025 has been absolutely brutal to them. The Patriot was designed to be a working man's deer rifle. It has that spiral fluted bolt that looks fancy, and it is priced right. But the bolt-action market has evolved faster in the last 2 years than almost any other category. We saw the release of the Ruger American Gen 2 and huge upgrades to the Savage lineup. Suddenly, the Patriot's loose bolt tolerances and that hollow-feeling synthetic stock started to feel really dated. The biggest killer here is the feature set. In 2025, even budget buyers demand a factory-threaded barrel for a suppressor or muzzle brake, and they want a stock that does not flex when you load up a bipod. The Patriot just feels a step behind. We are seeing racks full of these in 30-06 and 270 that people bought for a single hunting season, realized they wanted something more precise, and traded in. Because the market is so saturated with better budget options, the trade-in value on a used Patriot is practically rock bottom right now. Number 6. Kel-Tec Sub2000. At number 6, we have the Kel-Tec Sub2000. Specifically, I am talking about the Gen 2 models. This is a classic case of innovation cannibalizing its own history. For years, this was the backpack gun. It folds in half, takes Glock mags, and fits in a laptop bag. Cool concept, right? But in 2024, Kel-Tec released the Gen 3, and that one change, the twisting forend that lets you fold the gun without taking your red dot optic off, completely murdered the resale value of the Gen 2. With the old Gen 2, if you wanted an optic, you had to buy a weird, expensive flip mount, or take the red dot off every time you folded it, which meant losing your zero. It was a huge hassle. On top of that, Smith & Wesson entered the chat with the FPC, the folding pistol carbine, which shoots softer and folds sideways with optics mounted. The Sub2000 is a straight blowback action, meaning you have a heavy bolt slamming back into a polymer tube right against your cheekbone. It is not a comfortable gun to shoot. Between the harsh recoil, the beard-pulling stock, and the obsolescence caused by the Gen 3, used Gen 2 models are sitting stagnant. You can barely give them away these days. Number 5. Glock 43. At number 5, we have the standard single-stack Glock 43. Man, do you remember the hype when this thing finally dropped? For years, people begged Glock for a single-stack 9mm. And when it finally arrived, it was the king of concealed carry for about 5 minutes. But here we are in 2025, and the Glock 43 is basically a fossil. The industry shifted overnight to the high-capacity micro-compact. You look at the SIG P365, the Springfield Hellcat, or even Glock's own 43X and 48. Those guns give you 10, 12, or 15 rounds in a package that is barely bigger than the 43. The standard 43 only holds 6 rounds in the flush mag. 6. In a world where carjackings involve 3 or 4 bad guys, 6 rounds just doesn't make people feel warm and fuzzy anymore. To make the 43 viable, you have to buy aftermarket magazine extensions, and by the time you do that, the grip is just as long as a 43X, but with less reliability. Everyone is trading these in to upgrade to the higher capacity models, so the used market is drowning in them. Number 4. Taurus Judge. Number 4 is the Taurus Judge. This is the gun that proves marketing is more powerful than ballistics. For a decade, this was sold as the ultimate carjacker defense weapon. The idea of shooting a .410 shotgun shell out of a revolver sounded devastating. But the data caught up to the legend. Over the last few years, we have seen endless ballistic tests proving that .410 birdshot out of a 3-inch barrel barely penetrates drywall, let alone a threat. And the buckshot spreads so wide at 7 yards that you are liable to hit everything except what you are aiming at. It is a novelty gun. It is fun to explode watermelons with, but as a carry gun, it is heavy, bulky, and limited to 5 shots. Once the novelty wears off, usually after about 3 range trips, people realize they have a giant, heavy revolver that is expensive to feed and impractical to carry. In 2025, practical shooters are dumping these for high-capacity 9s, and the judge is finding himself sitting in the used case with a bargain bin price tag. Number 3. Springfield XDM Elite. Coming in at number 3 is the Springfield XDM Elite. This one is actually a bit tragic because, mechanically, this is a fantastic pistol. It has one of the best factory triggers on a polymer gun, and it runs like a sewing machine. So why did the value tank? Simple. Springfield killed it. They murdered their own product line by releasing the Springfield Echelon. The Echelon is the future. It has the serialized chassis system like the SIG P320. It sits lower in the hand, and most importantly, it ditched that grip safety that half the internet hates. The moment the Echelon dropped and proved it was a serious duty-grade handgun, the entire XD and XDM line became legacy tech overnight. It is like trying to sell a DVD player after Blu-ray came out. People look at the high-bore Axis and the grip safety on the Elite and say, "Why would I buy that when the Echelon exists?" The demand dried up instantly, and now you can find these Elites for pennies on the dollar compared to their launch price. Number 2. Savage Axis. At number 2, we have the Savage Axis. And I want to be specific here. I am talking about the original, first-generation Axis, not the newer Axis II with the AccuTrigger. This rifle was the definition of race-to-the-bottom manufacturing. For years, this was the rifle you bought at Walmart because it was the cheapest thing on the rack that went bang. And to be fair, Savage barrels are legendary. Even these cheap ones are accurate. But the rest of the gun? It is rough. The trigger is heavy and gritty. The bolt lift is stiff, and the synthetic stock is so flimsy you can practically bend the forend to touch the barrel with your bare hands. In 2025, the market for ultra-cheap bolt guns has completely shifted. Buyers have realized that spending just $50 more gets you a Ruger American or a Savage Axis II that actually feels like a real firearm. The used market is absolutely flooded with these Gen 1 Axis rifles. You see them sitting in pawn shops with those cheap, no-name bundle scopes still mounted on them. Dealers hate taking them in on trade because they have to price them at like $150 just to move them. And there is almost no margin there. If you have one, just shoot it until the barrel burns out, because you are not getting your money back. Number 1. CZ Scorpion EVO 3. And finally, at number 1, the biggest fall from grace I have seen in the last 2 years, the CZ Scorpion EVO 3. 3 years ago, this was the king of the 9mm carbine world. If you didn't have a Scorpion, you weren't cool. It had the video game looks, the affordable magazines, and a massive aftermarket. But fast forward to late 2025, and the value of the S1 and S2 models has tanked harder than almost anything else. 2 things killed it. First, the release of the 3 Plus model confused the market and made the older generation look instantly dated, especially with the magazine compatibility changes. But the bigger issue, the elephant in the room, is the bolt wear controversy. The internet exploded with reports of soft factory bolts peening over, causing out-of-battery detonations that could literally blow the receiver apart. Even though it is a rare issue, the fear factor killed the used market. Buyers are terrified to pick up a used Scorpion unless it already has an aftermarket Nexus bolt installed, which costs hundreds of dollars. On top of that, you have competitors like the Grand Power Strybog and the PSA AKV offering roller-delayed blowback or better reliability for the same price. The Scorpion went from being the undisputed champ to a risky buy that sits on the forums for weeks with price drops. So, there you have it. 12 firearms that went from hero to zero in the resale market as we rolled through 2025. Look, if you own any of these and you enjoy them, keep shooting them. Resale value only matters if you are selling. But if you were banking on these retaining their value, the market has spoken, and it wasn't kind. I want to know your experience. Did you get burned trying to trade in a used Patriot or a Shield this year? Or did you scoop up a bargain because prices were so low? Let me know in the comments section. Make sure you like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below. Stay sharp.